Perfect. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for having changed the format of this beautiful event in order to be fully enjoyable by all the attendees, but also compatible with the current restrictions that we are all facing these days. My name is Simone Di Piazza. I'm Head of Innovation and R&D Services in Ducati. My background is in simulation, and I was head of design, chassis design department for 13 years. And I have also to deal with materials and process technologies. Today, I would like to introduce you to Ducati, and I will start to share my presentation. Okay. So everybody can see it, hopefully. Here it is. And we will start with the introduction of Ducati. Then we will think about the meaning of innovation. And finally, we will have a look to the future trends in the motorcycle industry. But let's start with some data regarding the history of Ducati. Ducati was founded back in 1926, and as my colleague Dial Mazzinelli from Dallara said before, started to build motorcycles in 1946. Now produces a full range of premium motorcycles with a strong inspiration from racing and a lot of technology. Apart from the famous headquarters in Borgo Panigale, we have a plant in Thailand and a provider of assembly in Brazil. Ducati now sells their products in 90 countries worldwide, thanks to more than 720 dealers and 13 dealers, subsidiaries. Sorry. I think that it's now time to share with you a short clip that will introduce you to the world of Ducati.
Every Ducati arises from one vision. To catch the future and make it run easy. A vision originating in a tireless drive for innovation. The pursuit of unconditional beauty. The desire to explore new worlds. Endless time. The power of a no-compromise performance. To test our limits and build top teams. The endless energy of true passion. This is our story, made of achievements, success, and future.
But what does Ducati stands for? What exactly? What are the core values of Ducati? Well, I can say that those three words, together with trust, of course, are the one that better describe Ducati. Our products are renowned and appreciated worldwide for their design. Therefore, style is our first core value. They are loaded with a lot of sophisticated technical solutions, like, for example, desmodromic timing system, for example. And we are in continuous research of the maximum performances in terms of power, of course, but also lightweight, handling, braking, and so on. This is why for us technologies and innovations are key factors. But when I said innovation, what does it mean exactly, innovation? There are really many definitions that one can find also in Google and many other places. I thought that the first thing to do was to have a look at the dictionary. And if you take one of the most famous and trusted online dictionaries, you will see that innovation is associated with novelty. But this is, of course, a very accurate and concise definition, but it focuses only on one concept. Is novelty enough, or do we have to take into account other factors or aspects? One of the best pictures that I have found when I prepared this presentation to describe innovation from considering all the various aspects that are involved is this one that I'm going to show you right now. Novelty, of course, is one of the aspects that one have to take into account when defining innovation, because without novelty, of course, we are not dealing with an innovation, but maybe with only an optimization. But of course, we have to also consider the significance of the innovation. Does it solve a meaningful problem or not? And last but not least, does it create value for your company? So innovation is a process. Is better described as a process that leads to a creation of value through innovation. Innovation aimed to solve meaningful problems. But where those meaningful problems come from? Well, the answer is pretty clear. Those problems that need to be solved through innovation are to be searched in customer needs and expectation. So a better description that we can have for innovation is to turn in a new idea into a solution that adds value for the customer. So to summarize this concept, we can say that the key in innovation is to match new technologies to customer needs and expectations. I would like to stress the fact that the customer has to be the focus, and the habits of the customer are changing through the years. And only with innovation we can have a successful business. Therefore, innovation is the key factor of success, the most important one for each company. I would like now to show you some examples of innovation based on new customer needs or expectations. The first one is very actual, considering the current situation, very appropriate. No one wants to queue at the supermarket. And if there were shops, many more shops organized like Amazon Go, no one would ever need to queue. So starting from the need or the expectation not to waste time on a queue, Amazon introduced a really helpful and nice innovation. Another example is when you have to call a taxi and you need to wait and to find one free. The answer was came from Uber. Now, of course, shared transportation is facing hard times because of the coronavirus. But before that, the distribution, the increase of popularity of these type of applications was great. And before moving to the trends in motorcycle industry, I would like to show some other examples of technologies that are now very widespread in the automotive industries, and that you will see for sure in the next future. First of all, artificial intelligence. This technology has nearly unlimited application in many different fields. In automotive, it has made autonomous driving possible also in very, very difficult situations, not only while you are queuing in a highway packed with many cars. Another technology that is emerging now and is becoming more and more important is 5G communication. 5G communication is the basis of the communication between vehicles to infrastructure, vehicles to pedestrian, vehicles to network in general. This is also something that has to deal with safety, and it will be a key factor of success for the transportation in the future. We will see for sure. Another very interesting and promising technology is blockchain. Blockchain technology can give a necessary warranty on any type of transaction. Therefore, it can be efficiently used to track, for example, maintenance, special parts fitment on vehicles, and so on. Such as you can end up with something which is a sort of a digital vehicle passport for your car or your motorcycle. Another technology that was mentioned also by Dallara in the speech before is additive manufacturing. Additive manufacturing is rapidly spreading in many industrial sectors, and when used together with topology optimization, it allows for lightweight design, which is nearly unbeatable with traditional technologies, because additive manufacturing removes the constraints of all the traditional technologies, like minimum thickness, draft angles, and so on. Virtual reality or augmented reality has many applications too. And VW Group, for example, I took this picture from a recent article regarding the development of Golf 8. VW Group used this technology to develop Golf 8, and is currently using for all other new products that will be in the market pretty soon. And the aim is to speed up development and to allow for concurrent engineering in order to, as I said, shorten the development time of new products. Last but not least, wearable technologies. Wearable technologies are being used with the purpose of simplifying activities for a human and expanding their capabilities. And for example, an application that I would like to mention is the use of wearable technologies in production plants to facilitate, for example, logistics and material handling in general. But let's go to the focus of my presentation, my today's presentation. But before talking about the innovation, we need to understand which are the boundaries, the limitation of innovation. As you maybe know, usually when we talk about innovation, we use the concept of innovation funnel. Now, I was joking with this picture, but the concept is correct, which means that you start with a lot of ideas and you end up just with a few of them, because you have to pass all the stages of innovation. Innovation is a process, as I said before. But what are those boundaries that limits the number of innovation that can go into production finally? Those are the one that you can read in the picture. Some of them are quite obvious, like, for example, performance, reliability. Of course, reliability, you cannot avoid to have reliability in your products. Others are equally important, and they are limitations that you cannot avoid, like regulation, safety issues, cost, and appearance, aesthetics. Sometimes also that is a limiting factor for some innovation. Apart from that, what are the sources of innovation? Well, in Ducati, we usually have an approach which is called open innovation, which means that doing innovation, we don't rely only on internal knowledge and internal resources, but we usually use multiple external resources. Like what? Like, for example, suppliers. We believe that working with suppliers, we can achieve sort of synergies. Suppliers can be a great source of innovations, in a sense that putting together their experience in a particular technology, for example, with our experience in the application, we can come up with very, very nice and innovative ideas. Another source of innovation, which is not exactly outside of a company, but it's in parallel with the Ducati Motor Holding as a production department, is racing. Of course, we use a lot the technology transfer from our racing department, and for us, Ducati Corso is sort of an advanced research and development department, which means that we can have access to technologies that are used in racing, and we can move those technologies after a couple of years or so to production motorcycles. One example that I have, that I can recall, is when we first introduced the traction control in our 1098 motorcycle. It was strictly derived from what was developed by Ducati Corse a couple of years before, and it was a great innovation, and all the other competitors followed our ideas. Also automotive, as I mentioned before in the examples of technologies from the automotive, you can imagine that being part of VW Group, we can have access to a lot of the new technologies used in the automotive industry. And this is, of course, a great advantage for us, because being a medium sized company, Otherwise, we would have some difficulties to have access to those latest technologies, because we would need great investments, and that would be challenging for a company like Ducati. Startups are becoming a really interesting and important source of ideas. Just to give you an idea of the importance of startups worldwide, this year at the CES in Las Vegas, there were more than 1,200 of startups from all over the world, and 50 of them were coming from Italy, which means that you have to be fully aware of the innovation coming from very small company, sometimes generated by young students leaving the university environment, that are really quick, flexible, dynamic, and up to date. And so this is why we use also this source as an important source for our innovation. Last but not least, of course, our university. Academic environment is of major importance for Ducati. We have a strict collaboration with many university. Now here in this picture, I've mentioned just a couple of them, but there are many others with interesting group of people with which we work on new concept and new ideas. Now I'm sure another short clip.
Motorcyclists belong to the most vulnerable category of road users. A frequent cause of accidents is lack of visibility for two-wheelers at intersections. Assistance systems make driving of motorcycles safer in the future. With the aid of motorcycle-to-vehicle communication, the vehicles exchange information regarding vehicle type, speed, acceleration, position, and direction of travel. The vehicles transmit this data up to 10 times per second to the environment. The basis for the data exchange is the direct communication in the 5.9 GHz frequency band and a special configuration of the wireless LAN standard. If the system detects an imminently hazardous situation, then it alerts the vehicle driver. Attention, vehicle on the left. Thus, important information that actively helps avoid potential accidents is provided locally along with warnings specifically tailored for each driver. Also, stationary vehicles transmit their data to the environment. A warning is only triggered when the system detects an imminent collision. Attention, oncoming vehicle. This ensures that in critical situations, all participants are informed and can react accordingly. Motorcycle-to-vehicle communication. Get connected for greater safety on the roads.
This clip showed you an example of innovation that was studied together with one of our major supplier, yeah, and it was done some time ago, but it was a great example of how working together with a supplier can end up with something new and something very interesting, and in this case also related to safety, which is one of our major concerns to improve safety in our motorcycle, and we will see it later in other examples that I'm going to show you. As I said before, Ducati Corse is a source of innovation through technology transfer. In this case, I can mention the transfer of knowledge regarding artificial intelligence that I mentioned before as one of the main technologies to be addressed in order to do to introduce some innovation also in the motorcycle industry. And as I said before, it's not a one-to-one transfer, what we do with Ducati Corse, but an adaptation, a modification of the purpose of the innovation that usually for Ducati Corse is to improve performances to something more adapt to the production motorcycles. So in this case, artificial intelligence is used to, for example, customize the behavior of a motorcycle in a very smart way to the needs of the customer, or to improve safety with some predictive behavior that is based on the analysis of the behavior of the motorcycle. Another technology very important that we are developing, and we are very close to the introduction on the market, is the Advanced Rider Assistance System, the Advanced Rider Assistance Systems, the ADS. All those features based on the technology of radar applied on a motorcycle, on the front and the rear, like it is done on in main most of the car running these days. And this application was done together with the help of Politecnico di Milano, the university, and we end up with something that was applied finally to a motorcycle that you can see on a spy shot on the right hand side of this picture. This just to give you an idea of how important it is to study the automotive applications, and which is the possibility to introduce some of those technologies into our newest products. Another fields in which we are studying a lot is the field of service and service and app that we can provide to our customers. Here you can see the so-called Ducati Link-Up, which is a way of connecting the motorcycle with a smartphone and to let the rider change, configure his motorcycle, record performance and itineraries in order to change the experience that he lives during the usage of a motorcycle. Of course, all those software and apps give the chance to Ducati to know better the behavior and interest of their customers in order to adapt future products to the needs and the way of the way in which they use and they want to use our products. Also, blockchain is another very interesting technology that we are studying, and some of the possible application of these technologies is to secure the connection to the motorcycle when we do something like the so-called FOTA, which means firmware over the air, which means to update the software inside a motorcycle using wireless connection. This is something that other brands are doing in the automotive, like Tesla, for example, is one of the well-known brand that is doing this type of, that is using this type of technology. And of course, as I said before, blockchain can be used also to track the application of spare parts or accessory on a motorcycle, and can be integrated with artificial intelligence and Internet of Things, again, to predict earlier failures on motorcycles in order to limit the effect of such events. When I mention working with, that we work a lot with the university, one of the collaboration that we are now having with the University of Bologna is, for example, the one with the guys that are developing Moto Student. Moto Student is a competition between universities. In this case, we decided to enter the competition dedicated to electric motorcycles, and the reason was to have access to this type of technologies and to know better the constraint, limitation, and critical aspects of electric vehicles, so that we can study in advance, because sooner or later we will enter this market too. We are part of the VW Group, as I said before, and VW Group is really focused on electrification, and so I think that when the infrastructure and the automotive market will be ready, now it is not so ready, also motorcycle industry will follow. Therefore, studying in advance is a strategic choice, and we decided to do it also collaborating with Moto Student. And in particular, we wanted also to investigate additive manufacturing that, as I said before, can give you a great advantage in terms of lightweight. And the idea was to apply additive manufacturing to a highly stressed structural part like the swing arm. And in this particular application, we ended up with a very lightweight design, only 3.7 kilos, which is very, very low figure for a swing arm of a motorcycle. I want to also mention some of the projects in which we are involved that will be a source of innovation too, hopefully, and that are mainly dedicated to safety, rider safety. This project in particular is called Pioneers, which is an acronym for Protective Innovations of New Equipment and Enhanced Rider Safety. There are a couple of motorcycle manufacturers participating to this European-funded program, and the idea is to develop and introduce introduce personal protective equipment that can reduce the effect of an accident. And in this case, we are studying lateral airbags, for example. Another partner is studying other means of protecting the rider of scooters, of different type of vehicles, of two-wheeled vehicles. And this is also, as I mentioned before, a field of research that we are really interested in. We started with the multistrada D-Air many years ago. In that case, the airbag was fitted on the jacket of a rider, but connected via Bluetooth with the motorcycle that was fitted with accelerometers in order to react to an accident. This is another approach, also using airbags, but airbags not fitted on the jacket. But this time we are starting to fit airbags on a motorcycle itself. Another project in which we are involved is the so-called CMC, Connected Motorcycle Consortium. In this case, there are nearly all the motorcycle manufacturers involved. And the idea is, in this case, to set up a standard way of interacting between vehicles, but not the one that is currently used by cars, but something which is more dedicated to the need of motorcycle riders. And below there are just 3 examples of way of interacting between motorcycles and cars in a very challenging or critical situation in which the two vehicles are not seeing each other, and a potential accident can happen. And my last example of technologies that I foresee that will be very interesting in the future are related to wearable technologies. When you have to provide the rider with a lot of information, like the one that we saw before, regarding the connection between vehicles, between infrastructures, the navigation system, and so on, you need to find out a way of transfer those information to the rider without distracting him too much. In a car, there are many ways of sending information to the rider: head-up display, various dashboards on the inside the car, haptic feedback, and so on. We are trying to think about how to transfer this type of way of informating, of giving the information to the rider, to something which is manageable by a rider while riding safely his motorcycle. So this was the end of my presentation dedicated to motorcycle future challenges. I hope that I've been able to give you an overview of the innovation from a Ducati's point of view. I'm now available to read some of your questions, and you just give me a couple of seconds to read the question on the chat, and then I will try to answer. So I see, are there any opportunities and which for a neo master graduates in international business management to work in Ducati? So there are a lot of opportunities in Ducati, of course. Coronavirus has changed a lot the way in which we are working. For example, now I'm working from home. A lot of people is doing like myself. Only the workers are in the factory to assemble the bikes, and therefore this 2020 will be for sure quite difficult to manage because we had to compensate for the lockdown that was very long and happened just in the middle of our peak season. This means that we are struggling to follow the demand, which is going to increase in the next months, of course, and therefore this year won't be a standard one, but usually we are always in search of new talent to be added to our group of people. We are now nearly 1,600, considering all the plants around the world. There's a plan of growing, not too fast, of course, because the growth has to follow the increase of turnover and not the other way around. Otherwise, it would be dangerous for the company, of course. Therefore, my suggestion is to go into the Ducati.com work with us section and to apply for a job in Ducati to see which are the open position, and this is the best way to move. Is Ducati entering the e-mobility? If yes, how? E-mobility, as I said before, we are studying a lot the e-mobility. Of course, we are a brand that has a very big product portfolio, but nothing in the more than motorcycles, moving from Scrambler from 400 to 800 up to a Panigale B4R with far more than 200 horsepower, which means that there's nothing of this type in our current product portfolio, but maybe in the future we will be able to offer also something in this product range segment. Allora. Hi Simone, do you think that World Motorbike Championships such as MotoGP and Superbike will allow constructors to use active aerodynamic devices? This is a good question, of course. Some manufacturers like Honda, if you are a MotoGP enthusiast, maybe you will see it. They tried to introduce something like that, but of course regulations have to be decided by the organizers of the championship. So it is Dorna that will decide which kind of technology is feasible and allowed or not, and the consideration has to be done thinking about budget, so cost of these technologies, and sometimes another way of deciding if a technology will be used or not in the championship is if it will be transferable to production motorcycles or not. If it is not, sometimes it is not the case to use it, because MotoGP, as I said before, is sort of an advanced research and development area, no? So This is one way of deciding what is going to be used and what is going not to be used. In the automotive sector, infotainment is quite successfully implemented on cars. How is the digital life going to influence the motorcycle driving? Is Ducati going to leverage on its community power? Well, of course, infotainment is something that we are looking for to have also on a bike more and more. We are just having something which is a Ducati Link-Up and so on. But the problem is that in a motorcycle, it's much more difficult than in a car to add a lot of information and to give a lot of information to the rider without distracting him too much. That was the last part of my presentation when I said that we are working to find a way of introducing all these technologies related to infotainment in a safe way and in a functional way for the rider. Another question. Is Ducati studying a way to replace mirrors with rear camera? This is a question that is strictly related to regulation. As I said before during my slide deck, there are a lot of regulations to be fulfilled. Not only regulation in Italy, but regulation in all the countries in which we sell products, our products. So we have to be 100% sure that a solution can be used worldwide. Otherwise, it's not sustainable from a financial point of view to have all the investment to introduce and develop this technology, but not be able to use it in the full volumes of motorcycles sold. Hi Simone, multi-body model or motorcycle that is used for dynamic simulation, how much is accurate than reality? The base model is even now object of study to reach minimum error. We are using multi-body simulation. Of course, the most advanced competence center in multi-body simulation is Ducati Corse. They are using it since 2002 or early 2000s. We are using it for different purpose, not to improve, not only at least to improve lap time, but to solve some particular issues or behaviors of our motorcycles, for example, to increase comfort or to guarantee high-speed stability, for example. So the answer is yes, we are using multi-body, and multi-body can be as accurate, as much accurate as it is correlated to experimental measurements. Therefore, the idea is you need to build up a model, have a validation of this model through experimental testing in a repeatable environment, like a test rig, not on the road. If you can use it, of course, a test rig for that purpose. And then when the model is fully correlated, which means reliable and predictable and predictive, then you can use it with a good reliability to predict what happens if you modify or change some parameters in your motorcycle. We have just 5 minutes, and then I have to close my speech. So just a couple of questions or at least one. Good morning. What are the most requested characteristics in a mechanical engineering graduate to work in Ducati? Well, to conclude my presentation, I can say that we developed together with 4 universities of this area, the so-called Motorcycle University of Emilia-Romagna, including in the course of studies all the technical courses that are required to be ready to work in the companies that are partners of MUNER, Motorcycle University of Emilia-Romagna. So if you want to have the best, let's say, chances to be hired in Ducati, well, you need to have a look to the course of studies that are customized to be in, and yeah, to the Motorcycle University course of studies. How much important is intuition in the innovation process? Yes, creativity is the beginning of all. As I said before, novelty is something which is necessary to have an innovation, but it's not enough. It should be novelty, something new, but something new that solves a problem, and this problem has to be meaningful, or how can I say, relevant to your industry, to your segment, in order to add value that can be recognized by your customer. And only in this way, innovation can be a key factor for the success of your business. That was my last answer. Thank you very much for your attention. Hope that it was an interesting overview on the world of Ducati. Enjoy the Motor Valley Fest in this digital format. Thank you very much. Bye.